Leanne, a most warm welcome to you for In the Chair today. It's a real privilege to have you representing Lang & Simmons and also the President of the REI New South Wales. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Leanne, you're a very busy person. Tell us about your life and what you're doing currently at the moment.
Juggling a whole lot of different things, to be perfectly frank. So my day job, if you like, is the Managing Director of Lang & Simmons. We've got 41 offices around New South Wales, mainly in Sydney, but most of them are we have got a good strong group of offices here in Western Sydney. I'm also the President of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales, only the second woman in 110 years to have actually held that position, so I'm thrilled to be able to encourage other women to take board positions within the Real Estate Institute, and hopefully encourage the next female president to put her hand up soon. And I've also got a networking group called Real Women in Real Estate, and we've got 2,000 members around the country, and that is just all about connecting like-minded women with, just to try and encourage them to take the next step in their career, whatever that looks like for them. Because in real estate, we have got just a little over 50% of the working population is women, but the vast majority of them are in admin support and property management roles. So we don't have as many in leadership and business ownership roles as we would like to see.
Let's take each one of those at the moment if we can.
Okay.
Each one of them, if I can put it in a colloquial sense, you're the boss, in the sense you're the president, or...
And I love that, I have to be honest.
And that's what I want to talk about. You're very effervescent, you have a strong personality. I think there's also another side to you in the sense that you have very high standards. Sure. And you do not negotiate where things are critical to success.
Sure.
What are some of those, am I fairly right?
Yes, you are, absolutely.
You come across very warm,
yep.
But I wouldn't want to not do the wrong, if I did the wrong thing, I'd know it.
Yes, absolutely right. You're a very good judge of character. I don't think being nice is a sign of weakness. I have a really good reputation of doing the right thing. I am a caring sort of, I really like people, but I don't suffer fools. And if people tell me they're going to do
evident.
something,
Can I just say that to you very early? We've only just met, and I feel that already. I'm inspired by just the interaction at the minute.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's important, and I think it's also important for women in leadership. It can be a little bit challenging to be. Sometimes you feel like you have to be like a man to be one of the boys, to be in that space, because quite often I will be the only woman at the table. But early on, I realised that I have to be me, and for me, I am warm, I am friendly, I am an optimist by nature, I'm happy most of the time, but that doesn't mean that I can't make the hard calls, it doesn't mean that I can't have difficult conversations.
Yes, and thanks for sharing that, because I think that's a very important insight for our audience, to hear those things. To be nice is just part of who you are, but if you get it wrong, watch out, so to speak.
Yeah,
step
absolutely.
up.
There are consequences, and be aware. But also, all of my team know that if they if something does go wrong, that they come to me immediately and own up to it. Don't try and blame it on other people. Just come up and say, okay, Lee, this is what's happened, but this is how I think we can move forward. Right. And then I'll support them.
Leanne, thank you for sharing that. That's very, as I said before, very insightful and very, very well received by those watching, particularly myself. So thank you for that.
Pleasure.
The Real Estate Institute, tell us about that in your leadership role. Only two...
only a second woman.
So tell me about that. What do you think you have that got you into that position?
Other than my natural charm and good looks?
Yes.
I think I was approached to go onto the board of the REI about 10 years ago. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit that it hadn't occurred to me prior to that time that I had a voice that was worth sharing in that space. Not that I ever underestimated or undervalued myself, it never occurred to me. And so I was passionate about, as a franchisor, I was frustrated that people were coming to me saying, okay, Leanne, I want to open a real estate business. I've got my real estate license. And I'd be like, awesome, okay, tell me about your experience. And invariably they would say, oh, I'm an accountant, but I've just finished my licence, or I've been a franchisee, I had a 7-Eleven franchise, or whatever it was, but they had no real estate experience. But by law, they'd done their course and they were allowed to open a business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wouldn't let anybody represent the Lang & Simmons brand without real estate experience.
Sure.
But I thought if I get onto the board of the REI, at least instead of just complaining about the problem, I can be involved proactively to work with government to try and improve the education and training requirements for agents. So that was my motivation all those years ago. And we've done a lot of work in that space, which I'm sure we'll get to. And then I was asked about maybe 4 years ago whether I would consider down the track becoming president. And I thought long and hard about it. And my initial, if I'm honest, initially I thought, ooh, why would they want me? I can't do that. And then I thought, you know what, Leanne, of course you can. And so I thought, why not? And here I am.
Well, again, to be congratulated. And the third arrow in the quiver, so to speak, the role of women in real estate.
Yeah, so
2000.
real women in real estate. So it's a networking group. We have events in each. We've been in every city around the country except for Darwin and Hobart, and so we're actually heading to both of those cities very soon in coming months. So I'm excited that we are truly national now. And I didn't really know why we needed that kind of group. To be honest, I've never been part of women's networking before. Never really participated in women's events at all, and people that worked for me kept on saying, "Okay, Lee, you've got a great bunch of contacts. Why don't we get together? We can have an event." And I'm like, "But why? What would we do there? Like, what would that all be about?" But what I've realised since is that women connect and communicate differently when men are not in the room, and that's no disrespect to men at all. It's just that some women like to be able to communicate and connect when there are not men. They don't feel like they're being judged. They feel like they're listening to stories that are similar to theirs rather than stories from people who their background they can't relate to as strongly. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So I reached out to a dozen of my girlfriends who had female networks that worked for them and said, look, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? Within 2 weeks we had an event with 65 women in Sydney, and I just stood back at that event and thought, okay, now I've got my answer. There is a need for it, and I can make this happen. And that's I'm good at that. I'm good at implementing. I'm good at actually taking the action and making things happen. So 3 years later, we're literally national, and we've got a division in Los Angeles as well, which is exciting.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for sharing that with us today.
Pleasure.
Your greatest success to date?
Gosh,
You might have
that's a great question. Yeah, I've got a lot of things that I'm proud of, to be honest.
Well, share that with us.
I went back to university as a 40-year-old and did my master's, my MBA, and that is a pretty massive thing to do when you're working full time. Being promoted to managing director of Lang & Simmons, because I've been with the business for, it'll be 24 years this year. So I've worked up from franchise administrator through all of the different roles to be MD, and being considered as a president of the institute was just incredible. So all of those things I'm thrilled about.
And again, on behalf of In the Chair, congratulations, because that story encapsulates really who you are and the values that you hold personally, which you take into the business world. So thanks for sharing that. The real estate profession, I'd rather use the word profession than industry, is undergoing considerable change, and technology is playing a role in that.
Massively.
Tell us about that. What's it going to be like in 5 or 10 years' time?
I can't even get my head around what it's going to be like in 10 years' time, to be honest. I have been in and around the industry for, I'm going to say it, 40 years, and it's changed massively only in the last probably, 10 years, but particularly the last 5 years. So there's a few things. Technology is definitely playing a much larger part. We don't believe that robots are going to take our jobs, but what we do believe is that tech-enabled agents will take the jobs of agents that are not going to embrace technology. We're making some incredible advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning, all of those things. So it's really, really exciting what is going on in the future. But to go back to real estate being a profession, that's where we think it needs to be. We as in the Real Estate Institute, in fact the Real Estate Institute of Australia, we're working hard at the moment to actually have a scheme under the Professional Standards Council. So that's a massive piece of work. We've been working on it for about 18 months now, and there's probably another 18 months to go before we get there, but we believe that is it. One of the things that consumers will tell you about agents is that it's a bit hard to differentiate them. Very hard to kind of tell which are the good ones and which are not. And so we think that if we have a professional standards scheme where the behaviour and conduct of the agents is monitored and controlled more tightly, then I think consumers will be the winners out of that.
And that's by your association?
Yep.
Again, I think that's very clever.
Yep.
Being involved in a number of associations,
Yes.
that's within rather than from without.
Exactly right. Yeah, and I think I agree with you. It's much smarter for us to actually do that.
Absolutely.
But where we did have, so the first pillar for us is getting that education and training improved. We had that passed through Parliament back in March of last year, but we're still waiting for the government to actually write the regulations to be able to implement that. So hopefully, I've been a little bit loud in my criticism around that, but I'm hoping that this year those regulations will be written and implemented, and we can take the first of a number of steps into improving the regulation and the training and education.
Well, best wishes, and
thank you.
keep us abreast of what's happening there. We'd certainly like to follow you in that down that road.
That'd be great.
Western Sydney.
Yes.
Opportunities.
Always plenty of opportunities, but there's been so much going on already, right? The amount of buildings that are going up, the infrastructure, the trains. I live in the northwest. I'm in Glenhaven, so Castle Hill just down the road from us. There's massive amounts of building. The trains are going through, so huge changes. But a lot of those price changes have already been kind of felt in the market, a couple of years ago, and so it's going to be interesting to see how the infrastructure goes, how the traffic goes. A lot happening.
What would you like to be remembered for?
Oh gosh, I would like to be remembered for encouraging women to take those next steps in their careers, steps into leadership, because one of the things that I did last year at the Institute was to have a Women on Boards breakfast, and we had a range of people speaking about what it takes to be on a board, not just the REI board, but any boards. And that event was sold out within a week of us opening it up. So that tells me there's a massive amount of women that really want that information, and they, potentially like me, want to be encouraged to take those next steps. So I want to be able to encourage that, but I also want to be able to encourage the male principals, business owners in our industry, to understand how to get the best out of the women that are working with them and how to encourage them to move forward.
Thank you for again sharing that.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking, because I hadn't really thought about it before. So.
Well, and what I like about your response, it's not about you. I listened and I talked to many people.
Yeah.
It's all about making myself better, or me. You're saying, no, I want to be of service. I want to leave this legacy. So thanks. It's very insightful.
Thank you.
You've got a dinner party on Saturday night.
Awesome.
And it'll be really good. And I want you to take 3 people to it.
Oh, all right then.
Other than myself, right?
Okay,
3 other, right?
Okay,
3
what
other
about my
people.
husband? Can he come?
That's up to you. But three people past now that you would like to have just for that dinner party.
Yeah.
And you might be say you and your husband.
Okay.
But 3 other people.
3 other people. Okay, well, I would take my husband with me. I have just finished reading a book by Kiki K, the founder of the Kiki K.
Yep.
And she sounds phenomenal, so I would love to have her to dinner.
Why? What buttons did she press?
Just being able to reimagine your life, being able to just go, anything's possible, just commit to it, give it some thought, and actually get some clarity around what might be possible. Because I think we sort of sit around going, I wish, and if only, oh, and if I win lotto, and those kind of conversations. But to actually get some clarity around what you might be able to achieve, I got excited. I got really excited reading it. So definitely her. I'll be a cliche and say Oprah, because she's just incredible. And I can see I'm being very influenced by books I'm reading at the moment. I've also just about finished Emma Isaac's book, Winging It, and she is the founder of Business Chicks. Mm-hmm. And she seems like just an incredible force of nature, so I think she'd be awesome.
We've been together for the last 15 minutes, and I must say it's been an absolute privilege to interview you and find out about you and the organisations you represent. In the chair is and has been a privilege to have you today. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.